right wing going along with the Ukraine war, going along with fear-mongering about Russia, the same way that liberals do. Like, people think that Russia-gating and Russia fear-mongering is uniquely tied to the Democratic Party. They think McCarthyism, the new McCarthyism, the Red Scare is unique to liberals, but no, it's literally a Uni-party thing. And this segment is beyond parody. And I'm gonna explain to you as we go along. So let's get into it.
Putin issuing a worrying statement this week as tensions continue to fester between the U.S. and Russia, saying, quote, "In the event of a third world war, there will be no winners, including America." Now, this comes as Russia escalates their military offensive in Ukraine. The president of Belarus, meanwhile, has confirmed that his country received tactical nuclear weapons from Russia. So how concerned should we be, especially as Putin reportedly tells the West to go to hell at the same time? Joining us now with reaction is former U.S. Defense Intelligence Officer and author of Putin's Playbook, Rebecca Koffler. Rebecca, great to see you this morning.
Great to see you.
Remember, this person wrote a book, the Putin's Playbook. So let's hear from her. Let's hear from this amazingly enlightened thinker.
Not just saber rattling, but almost taking the saber out of its sheath in terms of Vladimir Putin sending nuclear weapons to Belarus.
Yes, this is a very concerning development. It's strategic messaging by Putin to Washington to back out of Ukraine, to stop arming Ukraine. It is driven by fear of losing this war that he cannot afford, because the outcome of this war is existential for him. Russia considers Ukraine as part of its strategic security perimeter, and it cannot allow NATO to get as close. Just like we wouldn't allow China or Russia or Iran to get as close to Mexico or Canada. So that is why Putin is overreacting.
So, Rebecca,
overreacting? Hold up. You just dismantled your entire argument, ma'am. She just said that Russia viewed Ukraine as existential because they had been invaded through Ukraine multiple times by Nazis, Napoleon, as well as a few generations before that. So there's a historical precedent that leads Russia to view Ukraine as a strategic security point. And then she goes on to accurately say something that even I say all the time. Imagine the reaction of the United States if the DPRK, if Iran, if China, if Russia had military bases in hostile foreign powers in Mexico, staging rebellions to put pro-Iranian, Russia, or China forces in there. She acknowledges that the United States would react the same way, and then she turned around and say, well, Putin is overreacting. Your analysis is contradictory. I want you guys to hear that part again, because this is amazing. The NATO left and these people who support NATO, they will admit that they're fucking with Russia. I really want you guys to hear this part one more time.
Arming Ukraine, it is driven by fear of losing this war that he cannot afford, because the outcome of this war is existential for him. Russia considers Ukraine as part of its strategic security perimeter, and it cannot allow NATO to get as close. Just like we wouldn't allow China or Russia or Iran to get as close to Mexico or Canada. So that is why Putin is overreacting.
So, Rebecca, that's incredibly.
How is he overreacting based on what you just said? And I remember if we say what you just said, and we say this is why we should negotiate because the West is being unreasonable, you guys said we are repeating Russian talking points, and this is something that you guys acknowledge. Someone who wrote the Putin's Playbook. But Zoya, go ahead and chime in if you want.
I'm going to drop another video to follow this one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm only going to play a little bit more of the video because I want you guys to hear that gem. Let's play the follow-up, and then we can get to your video. We got quite a few to break down. Hope you're in here with me for the long haul, my friend.
Honestly terrifying. For Vladimir Putin to consider what's happening in Ukraine an existential threat. And for him to begin to talk about the use of nuclear weapons and to extend your analogy of what if Russia were doing something in Mexico or Cuba, what is the off-ramp? We can put on screen, by the way, the number of nuclear weapons at any hand for given countries. Russia's got the most.
At the top.
Yeah. So what's the off-ramp for him facing an existential threat?
So right now,
So when you look at that graph, I want to ask Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders the wisdom of us trying to engage in proxy wars and provoke another nuclear power. A nuclear power that has more nuclear weapons than we do. What is the wisdom of that? For your ego? So Putin doesn't get a W? You willing to risk nuclear annihilation of the human species because you don't want Russia to get a W? You guys are psychopaths. The doomsday clock is closer to midnight than it's ever been. Because you guys are trying to provoke this shit. Look at that graph. That's the country you want to kneel? Can you guys face reality that Russia is a power that we're not going to force to kneel, so we got to coexist with them? Psychopaths in the NATO left like Marianne Williamson and Bernie Sanders can't stand the idea of another power. Western chauvinists can't stand the idea of a Slavic nation, of an Eastern nation like Russia or China being on top, so they want to risk nuclear annihilation to keep them in check. It's actually unbelievable. And then they blame Russia. They're like, oh, Russia is saber rattling because they're threatening to use nuclear weapons to defend their statehood and their sovereignty, the same way the United States claimed to do. You want to know the only country who dropped a nuke? The United States. Only country that has done it. And the United States policy continued to be that they have the right to drop a nuke if their national security is threatened. So Russia said we can do the same thing, and they want us to fearmonger them. If you have criticism of Russia's policy, that is directly tied to United States, NATO, and the West provoking them. Zoya, you want to chime in, and we can get to your video next.
Yeah, and Japan was already surrendering when they dropped the atomic bombs. Those bombs were dropped specifically as a warning to the Soviet Union. Yes. It was just an intimidation tactic, and we see right now the same strategy being played out with China, where 400 military bases, which by the way each cost $400 million each to maintain per year, are surrounding China, and yet China is being framed as the aggressor. Russia it's I mean, you just have to suspend all rational thinking to accept these narratives. Russia used every diplomatic means. They signed the Minsk Accord. Now Putin is showing that they had a peace agreement inked over a year ago that Biden and UK were sabotaging. Russia did not need a war. They were doing great selling gas everywhere else. But at the same time, Russia also tried to join NATO, but they were refused. So this situation, every single honest academic has talked about for decades, that this aggression, NATO aggression, is going to lead to direct conflict with Russia. And Russia absolutely had no choice, where after Soviet collapse, they saw the rise of fascism, which was completely orchestrated by the CIA, which loves to destabilize every single region. This is an old tactic. And they started flaming nationalism, and all of those Nazis that were driven into hiding came right back out. They put on their old little Nazi uniforms, started having parades, and started brainwashing and indoctrinating the youth. Putin just recently played old video footage of the Banderites committing atrocities. Yes, horrible atrocities. And that is now the national hero that is on stamps outside of malls, on street signs, and in every book that's in school, being hailed as a nationalistic hero of the Ukraine. So you have to understand that when this is happening on your country's border, look at how US is reacting right now to China wanting to put arms in Cuba. So there's no consistency. US just wants to run the world. This video is from 1991, as the Soviet Union was about to collapse, and they're talking about the rise of Nazism in Ukraine, and unfortunately, they could not foresee how it would go. Let's listen.
Съезд организации украинских националистов. Подробности в репортаже нашей.
Театр имени Заньковецкой. Сегодня здесь, спустя почти полвека впервые собрались ветераны украинского националистического движения. В зале делегаты, представляющие сегодняшние националистические организации, которые возобновили свою работу здесь, на Западной Украине и украинского зарубежья. К собравшимся обратилась глава антибольшевистского блока народов Ярослава Стецко, кстати сказать, жена премьера правительства украинского государства, созданного гитлеровцами и украинскими националистами в июне 1941 года во Львове. Во всех выступлениях звучала мысль о том, что ветеранам украинского националистического движения необходимо вновь объединиться и передать дух борьбы за соборную самостийную украинскую державу новому поколению.
This is a brilliant receipt, Zoya. It's great to see this. Hopefully we can get this to buffer our way through. Make sure you guys support us on Patreon so I can get better Wi-Fi at my new place.
Yes,
That's
the
the only thing I can play right now. I told you guys this is a trial show because it's the first time. Like CJ was with me on Monday, so hopefully I'm looking at my signals. I'm like, hopefully this thing don't cut off. But anyway, let's continue.
Вот здесь в зале сегодня, в общем, не...
Oh shit! I don't know why this video being an asshole. Zoe, do you mind summing up?
Много ваших сторонников. Давайте говорить откровенно.
Небагато сторонників. Я думаю, що ми маємо всі симпатії на Україні. Я була під Берестечком, я бачила, скільки було синьо-жовтих прапорів, національних прапорів. Я бачила червоно-чорні прапори, які є прапорами організації українських націоналістів.
Вы сейчас проходили только мимо театра Зенковецкого. Вы знаете, что там происходит?
Нет, не знаю.
Нет.
Не знаю.
Что ж, и такое сегодня возможно. Однако думаю, что у националистов любого толка сегодня большого будущего не будет.
Oh, how wrong he was.
What a fantastic receipt. Zoya's love, Zoya's life.